Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here at Rose Red Homestead, where I have a birthday coming up. And to celebrate that birthday, we are going to have Pam's Birthday Bash book sale, 30% off. And it runs August the 2nd through the 5th. And so that is this coming Saturday through Tuesday. And it runs from midnight to midnight. Midnight 01 on Saturday morning to midnight in the middle of the night on Tuesday night, and that is Mountain Time, and everything will be 30% off. Everything in the bookstore is 30% off in celebration of my 81st birthday, and so we're excited about that and hope you join us for that book sale. And now is your chance to get whatever you wish out of the bookstore. And could we just recommend our book on preparedness? That is such an important one for you to have in your libraries. So today we are going to talk about something that is just wonderful in my estimation. When we first moved to this property 14 years ago, it was the middle of winter. We came in December, and that following spring we had prepared a garden spot and planted tomatoes, and we had a bumper crop of tomatoes. My daughter came over and we canned quart after quart of all kinds of tomatoes. I have never been able to repeat that. I have just done mediocre harvests for those remaining years. We get enough to eat, but hardly ever enough to even can a pint of anything. And so in January of this year, we did a video on growing veggies from scraps. You may remember that video. In that video, I held up a single tomato. I cut a slice off of that tomato. It was full of seeds, and I planted it, except it didn't fit, and so I cut it again and again and planted just half of a slice of tomato in a solo cup like this. Well, that tomato produced between 30 and 40 little starts. From among those, I planted 14, and through the months of this year, we have followed the growth of those 14. Now, I ended up giving 8 of them away, and I have worked with 6. 4 I put in the greenhouse, and 2 I put out in our Vigo gardens. And I have just been totally astounded. Now, these are heirloom tomatoes, and heirloom have a special quality in that you can plant the seeds of heirloom tomatoes and it will produce good, wonderful, beautiful tomatoes. I have learned they're all not the very same. There are wonderful differences, but they are all really good, fabulous tomatoes. Well, that has turned into something that I was just totally surprised and shocked, actually, at the results. So this video is to show you what can happen when you plant just a slice of an heirloom tomato. Now, if you don't understand what heirloom means, heirloom are open pollinated as opposed to hybrid seeds. And I have a video explaining that difference, and I will link it to the end of this video so that you can learn a little bit about the type of seeds that you can have for emergencies. So we have harvested our tomatoes, and I want to show you the results. But first of all, what we are going to do is go through clips of videos that I have made this year that have followed those tomatoes. And once we get through the growth of all of those, I want to show you then the results. So at the end, I will meet you out at the tomato plants outside. The ones in the greenhouse are pretty much spent. I've actually pruned them to see if they will come back in the fall and produce more for us in the fall. A total experiment. I have no idea how that's going to work out. But I want to show you the 2 that we planted outside and what is happening with them. Then we will come back in here and I will give you the numbers, the results of what was the power behind that single slice of tomato. So you'll see me again in this same outfit at the end of the video when I'm standing by those 2 tomato plants, and I'll show you those, and then we'll come in here for the results. You get lucky in your grocery store and can find what is labeled as an heirloom tomato. And this is a beautiful little tomato. And I didn't even know that our grocery store carried these. I was thrilled to find this. And so what we know is that these seeds have remained unadulterated. And with heirloom seeds, what you see is what you get. It remains true to the final product. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to cut this here. And then I'm going to cut about right here. And do you see all of the seeds there? Well, I'm going to take this solo cup and put it right like that. Actually, I'm going to, because my solo cup isn't huge, I'm going to put those right there like that. And I'm just going to take some more soil and cover the top. And put it in there. And we should have, from those seeds, a lot of little tiny seedlings will be poking up. And when that happens, I will replant those, probably in individual solo cups like that. And then those will go out in our kitchen garden. And so I have used those seeds to produce more plants for us. Here are our 2 little tomato pieces. Many of those seeds have started to grow. I will need to go in here pretty quickly and pull out the ones that I'm going to save and put them in solo cups. I usually do grow my tomato starts in solo cups because they have a longer root, and all of my solo cups have drain holes on the bottom. Our 2 little pieces of sliced tomato that we buried produced over 30 starts. And of those 30, I transplanted 14 of them, and I filled these cups only half full of soil, put the little starts down inside, and as they grew, I would fill it and fill it and fill it until, this is our biggest one, until I got to the top. That gives our tomatoes a lot of extra roots to help its growth. And you'll see that these 3 are still struggling just a little bit. I haven't done much filling since I put the starts in, just a little bit. And then here, these, for those of you that have been following us for a while, you may remember that last January, I took a slice of an heirloom tomato and planted it, and we had about 40 little seedlings come up. From those 40 seedlings, I transplanted 14 and had them in the greenhouse. I've shown them, 3 or 4 times in the greenhouse. Well, these are 2 of those plants. So you have a big double one right here. This was the first one to come on any plant. And then we've got about 4 coming on the other one. Now remember these, because when we go in the greenhouse in just a second, its brothers and sisters are in the greenhouse, and you will not believe the difference. All right, let's head into the greenhouse. So here, 1, 2, 3, and then behind me is 4, I planted in here in these blue tubs. These have just gone bonkers. I've got several tomatoes on each one of these, probably a dozen tomatoes on this one, a lot on that one. What I have to do with these is every few days I have to come out and tap on the blossoms to help the pollination. Otherwise, they don't get pollinated because there are no bugs in here. There are no pollinators in here, and there's no wind in here. And so that has worked very successfully for me, to just pat these little blossoms and make sure that the pollen from the inner cone is getting down where it needs to be. So these I'm very pleased with. And we'll have a few tomatoes. Whether or not they ripen before the super hot weather gets here remains to be seen. These are the 4 tomatoes that I'm growing in the greenhouse from that original slice of tomato, of heirloom tomato, that I picked up in a grocery store that I planted in January. And then I have some planted outside, but these are the ones that are in the greenhouse. And as you can see, they're just doing really, really great. Lots of tomatoes coming. Big ones. This particular plant, when you plant an heirloom, you never know what you're going to get. This is a darker tomato than the other ones are. This is producing all darker tomatoes, and these are quite good. This is the harvest of our tomatoes at the very end of June for 2 days. And you can see that these heirlooms are all different sizes and shapes and even colors. There are some darker ones, there are some lighter ones, and big ones and small ones. So it's been very exciting, and we're getting about this many tomatoes every 2 days. But I don't think this is going to last because most of them are harvested now, and there's just a few left on the vines, and hot weather is coming and they won't produce during hot weather. Maybe they will come back in the fall, hopefully. So in those clips, you saw that I had planted 2 tomato plants from those January plantings that were about this tall. So one was here and one was here. And this is what they look like today. They are taller than 5 feet for sure. And they have gone through the wire. They're now on both sides of the wire with branches. And if you'll come this way, I'll show you. So here we are. And for many, many weeks, these did not produce anything. They had the first one big one that I showed you in the clip. And then after that, it was like they were completely dormant. They grew and grew and grew and grew like a big tree. But now they are finally starting to put out a few little tomatoes. Here's one that is nice and sizable. There are more here.
Yeah.
Here's one.
Okay.
And then did you see these 2?
No, I didn't. Okay.
And then this big one.
Yeah, I got the big one.
Okay. All right, so they are now starting to set fruit and produce as we are heading into the cooler part of the summer, although it's still in the mid to high 90s, so we'll see how this goes. But we've got a few blossoms coming again, so I'm hopeful that these will also produce like their brothers and sisters did, the 4 that I put in the greenhouse. So let's go back in the house and I'm going to explain the full results of what happened with all of the yield that we had. So in the clip, you saw a group of tomatoes that were on the countertop. And I said in that clip that we got about that much of a harvest about every 2 days. And it turns out that the 4 plants in the greenhouse produced well over 100 tomatoes for us. It was just amazing. They were loaded. And it was far more than we could eat. So I did a video on what to do with fresh tomatoes, and it was a fresh pasta sauce. I would chop them up and put them on a baking sheet, add onions and garlic and some olive oil and some salt and pepper and Italian seasoning. I would roast them in the oven and put them through the food processor to make pasta sauce. Well, I began to collect, and it was fresh pasta sauce. So although it was roasted pasta sauce, but I wasn't canning it. It began to collect in the refrigerator. So pretty soon I realized I'm getting so much sauce, I need to can it. So I double checked the tested recipe in the USDA for meatless spaghetti sauce. And my ingredients fell into line with what was included in that recipe, although I did not use all of the ingredients in that recipe, but I followed the canning times and temperatures for that recipe, and I began to can it in pints. So this is what the yield was. It actually yielded 2 quarts and 9 pints of pasta sauce. So I am just absolutely thrilled. The power of that one half slice, actually, of tomato has just done an amazing, amazing job for us. And it shows what you can do when you work with heirloom and open pollinated vegetable seeds, how you can save those seeds and then plant them and grow wonderful vegetables. So you may be wondering what I'm going to do for planting tomatoes next year. All of these tomatoes will be gone and I won't be able to have a slice of them fresh in January to start the process again. So what I have done is I have dehydrated some tomato slices from my heirloom tomatoes, and the seeds are all present, and these are the slices that I'm going to be planting once again in January to see what happens. So I'll keep you abreast of that as well. I'm thinking that it's going to be just fine. I dehydrated them at a lower temperature. I did it at about 120 instead of the higher that I usually do. So I think the seeds will still be viable, and we will have plenty of tomatoes for next year as well. So the power of a single tomato slice is just amazing. So thank you so much for joining us, and I just feel like we're all celebrating this success. So it has been a great adventure for us this year to work with these tomatoes. We will see you very soon for more videos.